All right, guys, this is part 2 of my chat with Khalil Rountree. Part 1 went really well. Hope you saw the video. If you haven't seen it, watch part 1 before you watch part 2. And we continue a great conversation about the psychology behind fighting, fears, motivations, the good times, all of it. You're known for being very, very explosive, very articulate, very well-rounded striker. Is there a reason why? Because everyone's got a different, some people get more drawn to striking or wrestling or jiu-jitsu, whatever the case. Is there a reason why you felt you were more drawn to striking?
Yeah, I think because just not really being athletic growing up and not doing anything involving being on the ground, getting up, even rolling on the ground. I didn't do anything on the ground. So punching and kicking to me, when I was able to do that, that helped me release my anger and just like aggression that I had pent up. And then I realized that the first time I did jiu-jitsu or any type of wrestling, I was way more tired than I'd ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't like this. I never want to be in this position. Let me just get extremely good at striking. But then realizing that you can't be one-dimensional in MMA, then that's when I started to kind of let down those walls and allow myself to embrace grappling and get tired and just learn how to work with it and have it work for me.
And you started, and you didn't kickbox or anything. It was straight into MMA.
Straight into MMA. I went straight into an MMA gym, and then the first class, the class that was happening at the time, was Muay Thai. And before I even went to the gym, I was watching videos online and seeing Vanderlei Silva, Anderson Silva, and back in the day, they used to classify people like a striker and, specialty in Muay Thai and grappling, Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu, like that. And all of the guys that I liked the most, their specialty was Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And so I figured I need to learn that if I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me into the gym and into MMA. So,
And you said, you were 300 pounds in that first class.
305. Yeah.
How long did it take for you to lose all that weight?
11 months.
And you were what in 11 months? Down to what?
I got down to 205 in 11 months. So
You had your first fight in 11 months?
Yes.
That's impressive.
Yeah, first fight in 11 months. So it was the second month of being at the gym. Already felt better. Was losing a little bit of weight. Went to an amateur fight. I told my coach, because everybody, we were there as a team, I was like, hey, I want to do it. Yeah. And he's like, okay, but right now you're just getting started. You're really big. You got to at least lose 100 pounds so you can fight the next weight class.
That has to have been a very empowering feeling, because if you being overweight, getting picked on your whole life, and all of a sudden you're hitting the pads, and you're losing weight quickly, and you realize at some point you're talented enough and you're hungry enough to want to fight. I imagine those 11 months would have been very exciting for you.
It was, I think
life-changing,
the best 11 months of my life.
Yeah.
I shut off my phone. I even told my friends, hey, I'm not going to talk to you guys as much anymore. I'm really dedicating my life to training. A good handful of people laughed at me. A good handful of people supported me. But I did what I said I was going to do, and I switched everything. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped eating red meat. All of these things. I completely shifted my life, and I became a brand new person in a year, pretty much. And that's where I feel like that's when my life really started. Yeah.
Did the non-believers change?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's got to be a good feeling.
The non-believers
too. Yeah.
changed, and even growing up in high school, girls that wouldn't even give me the time of day were like, I had the biggest crush on you. I was like, you liar. Get out of here. It's not possible. So my whole world got flipped upside down, man.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
And I imagine it'd be very empowering feeling, and you would have been enjoying that, because these are unexpected rewards, I guess, because when you're going through all the pains of losing that weight and hitting the pads, and because it's difficult, that weight class, it's hard to do everything, right?
Yeah.
And you're going through all that, and you're getting all these rewards of the high school chicks hitting you up, hey, by the way, it's got to feel. It's got to be.
Yeah.
This is because you're not expecting it, right? You'll go to the gym thinking about it.
No, not at all.
It
was just something that I just ended up loving, and just for the training. I didn't even know what came after that. I didn't know what it would come with. I just knew I found something that I loved, found something that I was getting acknowledged, like my efforts were getting acknowledged. I never really knew what that felt like. And yeah, and then everything just started to kind of unfold, and then the MMA world kind of started showing itself to me, and I was like, I like this. I think I can do something here.
What is that you consider to be like the what is the most rewarding thing about fighting? Either it's training, winning, being in the UFC. What is that you consider to be the most rewarding thing?
I think personally, it's the messages that I get from people who hear my story and how I started off, and just hearing the amount of just being able to hear from the people that I've been able to impact just from living my life how I've lived it. I think that's the most rewarding thing. Like people who, the messages that I've gotten, like people like, hey, I heard this on this podcast and that, and thank you for doing this, and you've changed my life, and that to me is the most rewarding thing, because when I'm hard on myself or when I want to give up or whatever, then I realize like, man, there's people watching, there's people who believe in me, there's people who are rooting for me for their own reasons. You know, it doesn't even have to be for betting reasons or whatever, but I feel like there's a small group of people that kind of put their belief and their hope in me, and coming from where I come from, some like it feels really good. I'm like, okay, like I have something to fight for. I have a bigger purpose.
Do you feel that is ever weight on you, the expectation that people around you put on you?
I did deal with that for a while, the expectation. But it was also, I came into the game as like a knockout artist, and a lot of my fights ended in first round knockouts. So it got to the point where I felt like the pressure was always to go in there and knock people out. And because of how I am, like I'm an emotional guy and like kind of like non-confrontational, and it's kind of hard to get that fire sometimes. So I was like, that was really hard to deal with. Like to have like feeling like I needed to meet the expectations of people like in that area, you know?
It's almost like you have to create filters to allow, because I think some level of expectation, like for example, you have people who believe in you, that support you over the years, or perhaps a fan like, hey man, like you give me strength, right, because of what you do, whatever. I think a lot of that can be very positive.
Yeah.
But then you gotta watch out to guard yourself against any kind of negative pressure, because that's gonna happen too. Whether it's like, oh, it's my last fight and you need this UFC contract,
Yeah.
or or maybe there's something going on at home, or this sponsor is gonna drop me, whatever the case, right? Because some pressure, I think, pressure is an interesting thing because it can be very positive or very negative.
Yeah.
I think I've experienced both.
Definitely. It for me, it depends on what's happening at home, what's happening in my life. Can I even handle the pressure? Because sometimes I'm handling a lot of pressure, already at home. So if I have pressure from fans and stuff, it can be a bit much. But recently I've been feeling more like I'm gonna start doing this for myself. Like I've been doing this for other people for so long, and just almost like for the approval of others, or to make others happy, or to give some other people something to believe in, or and sometimes I forget about myself, and like, why do I do it?
Why do you?
Why do I wake up every morning and put myself through this stuff? Like, what's in it for me other than, the winning or the acknowledgement? Like, what's deeper? What's really there? Why do I do it? And I've been spending more time in that space, and it's been giving me a lot of fuel and training.
It's funny because you ask that question to a lot of fighters, a lot, even like just not even just professional fighters, but practitioners in general. Like, why do you do it? And people can't always give you an answer. Like people don't always, they haven't given it a thought. They do it. Like they wake up at 6 a.m. to run sprints on the treadmill, right? Or they cut all this weight, or they pay a very high price to do this stuff, right? But they don't always know why they do it. I'm with you, man. I think that if you do it if the motivation starts within and it pours out, I think it's a lot healthier than if it's like the outside pressure trying to move you from the outside, right?
Yeah.
If there's something in there, maybe you don't even know what that is that moves you. Like who knows, a multitude of different things that might be motivating you. But I think that if there's something in there, like an inner drive, and that is your main drive, I think those are the right motivations, right?
Yeah, and it's the question itself, like, what are you in it for? I actually ask myself that when I'm training. When I'm on the bike on the airdyne, my coach is yelling at me like 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, and I'm like, I'm asking myself, what are you in it for? What are you doing
Yeah,
this for?
yeah.
But not in like a victim mentality, more of like
Do it.
really
Yeah,
screaming at myself like, find it,
yeah,
find it. And by the end, like by the time that like while I'm searching for it, I'm searching, the round's over. But then I just gave the best efforts, really trying to find it.
yeah.
And so that's kind of been my motivation lately. I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym today. I don't want to work out, but I'm gonna go and I'm gonna search for the answers, like why I'm even doing this stuff. And it's sick, man. I love that headspace.
Because you've discovered something that you were either ignored before, maybe you didn't know. But if you once you find that pathway, like there's a lot more strength in me than you see on the surface. It's something you take with you. You know you can.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like you know that you start discovering who you are, and it's something I believe you can shape it. I don't think it's one of those things where it's like set in stone. Although some people probably have more than others naturally. But that's a very powerful feeling, man. This is why I'm such a big fan of martial arts, because you might be able to discover this through other practices, like other sports or whatever. But man, martial arts, like talk about something that's the emotional pressure, the physical pressure. I mean, in terms of the tactics, the technique, man, there's so many realms to this.
Yeah.
I have a hard time thinking of any sport, almost anything that is as complete as fighting.
I don't think there is, because if you look at martial arts, it's like a never-ending journey. It's art, so it's everlasting, right? Like you can get someone who's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and you get another guy who's a black belt, and they can do the same things but in different ways,
Yeah.
and like the paths can lead in
Infinite,
into they just keep going, and so I think that joining or like putting yourself into any type of martial art and committing to it, it's a lifelong. It's never ending. There's no end. It's not like, all right, Rob, you got your black belt, you're done. It's like, no, you continue to grow, you continue to learn and teach, and it just keeps going. I don't know anything like that. I don't.
It's pretty infinite.
Yeah, like football, it's like you got your basics. Like, what do you do? Yeah, you can add little like side steps and fakes and different plays, but at the end of the day, it's like it's still pretty much the same thing.
Do you, and throughout your career, do you have any regrets? Things that you would change or would have done slightly differently?
You know, it's a very like yes and no, because there are things that like in my personal life I feel like I would have changed, like relationship choices and giving more time to my training and things like that. But all of the stuff that I went through is kind of what led me to like travel and this like everything. I can't say that I regret it, but sometimes I do wish I can go and tweak a couple of things.
Do you think that so your career is now what, 8 years? How long was it? When did you make your debut?
2011.
So 10 years. Like you've been fighting for 10 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that your motivations or your way of thinking, like how much has changed over time, and how much do you see it changing in the next few years?
I think the motivations in the past were I was really like starstruck, or not starstruck, but like I was really like taken by just like having people watch me. Like I'd never been like on the center of the stage, like people watching and acknowledging. So I was really like overwhelmed by that, and it motivated me for a long time, because finally I felt like I'm somebody in my local in Las Vegas. Tough enough, it's like there's thousands of people that come watch amateur fights, so I felt like I've got like this, like I'm someone. And that's changed to now I want, instead of like the acknowledgement and being like this star, I more want to be something bigger, like, and better for my family, for just something more meaningful, not just a fighter, not just someone who's a champion, someone who can beat anybody. And no, like want to do something more, man. I want to be something more. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think of people like Muhammad Ali, not for, I don't only admire him for how great of a fighter he was, but like he had a medal from the United Nations, like a medal of peace, and like he met the Dalai Lama, and everyone loved when he was on TV. You know, he was like part of like social problems and all of these things, and like, there was something inside of him that was bigger, right? And he challenged it always. He always went for it, and I would love to kind of live a similar type of.
You want fighting to create you, but not define you.
Exactly.
And that's what Muhammad Ali did.
Exactly.
Like, people like that, because
In short words, absolutely.
Yes, because it does change you. It does, it's constantly transfiguring you. Like, it's making a new version of you every day. But at the same time, like, I would think, and I'm, to each their own, everyone's different, but I'm with you. Like, I would never want to be the person, like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
It's a big part of who I am, right? But you want to be more than that. And in fighting, you learn all these lessons. Like, they teach you, like, just like you learn lessons in music about discipline. Like, if you stick to it, you're going to sit down here to play the guitar, you're going to get good at it.
Yeah, for sure.
Some people never learn that. They want to get good at the guitar in 2 days, and if it doesn't happen, they quit, right?
Yeah.
That was me for the first 6 years, learning how to play the guitar, by the way. But like, once you cross that, you bridge that, you go like, oh, you learn lessons that they carry over for everything, right? So hopefully the fight, I always say the fight doesn't stop. Like, it doesn't end when you get a black belt, or when you get a UFC belt, or when you become even there's no end as to how much you can constantly be improving on yourself.
Exactly. I think, just to kind of like circle back on the question you asked, one of the things that's been motivating me lately and in this day and age is survival. So when I'm in my strength and conditioning training, it specifically, one of my motivations is I think about, like, if our environment were to suddenly just turn chaotic and lights are off and people and children run around the streets, buildings falling, whatever, how do I respond? Am I the guy that's shaken up and caught up by, or am I the guy that's able to save and carry, rescue bodies and climb a building with 2 people? Like, that's kind of the questions now that I'm now trying to answer for myself. What type of man are you inside? Not in the cage, but for humanity.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, so when I'm pushing myself and then things get hard, I'm not necessarily thinking about the fight. And not to get like too graphic, but I'm thinking about, like, if this 80-pound bag were my sister or my nephew, am I going to drop it? Am I going to be tired? Am I going to say, oh, I want to quit, or, oh, this workout sucks? It's like, no, I'm going to do everything I can to get this bag, as heavy as it is, to the end and back 10 times if that's what I need to do. And so that's been my motivation lately. And I like who it's making me inside. Because, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's so much more rewarding, because just visually in my mind, I'm thinking of people that I love, and I'm thinking of, I'm seeing things online about Palestine, all this stuff. And I'm like, man, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Like, if I had no control over my environment and there's just chaos, I'm not going to hide, or like, I need to do something. I need to save someone. Even if I don't know them, I need to be willing to go all the way into the end until I take my last breath. And so, that's kind of where.
And you want to find out how far you.
How far can I go until I say that this is enough? And I want to get to the point where, like, I don't say that. There's guys like in the military, right? They're trained, like, no matter what, you don't ever give up your resources. Whether you're, if you're a prisoner of war or whatever, you keep your mouth shut. And I want to be that type of person inside for my own reasons, whether it be for family or country or, whatever. But I want to have that, like, unbreakable will that, like, you literally have to kill me in order for me to submit.
You mentioned something that, like, it reminded me of something, like, you play these little games with yourself on when not to quit, or to find that extra strength. And I come up with like a million different ways of, like, giving myself that extra. Like, one of them was, I always think of family and things that I loved. That right there, for some reason, always gave me a little extra. Like, if I'm trying to pass someone's guard and I couldn't, and I'm exhausted, I'll try to think of something I'm absolutely crazy about, and think about something terrible happening to them unless I pass that guard. You're just surprised what you can do when
for
you add
sure.
that, because emotion does have a place in fighting. Because we're always taught you're supposed to be stone cold and not really show any emotion, right? But there is a time to be emotional. I think there's a time that you can use emotion in a fight in a very positive way.
We can't help it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we can't really help if something makes us feel emotional. We can control how we show it or how we react to it, but the feeling of emotion, like, we can't really help it. So we gotta like learn how to control it or channel it, right?
I tell, like, a lot of times when I'm coaching people, I say, so always start with the brain. Brain is in charge. Every now and then, you got to let this guy take over.
When you need it.
There's a time. There's a
It's
time.
the reserve
like,
tank.
This is reserve tank. Like round 5, you're exhausted, you got nothing left. You got to let this guy take over, right? It's the overthinking stuff. Like, this is, you want to be chill, composed, and everything, but there's a time there where you got to, I think that right there could be like you said, the reserve tank.
Yeah, I think the acknowledging where you are, whether you're in your head or your heart in the heat of the moment, or just like in competition or even in training. Like, am I overthinking, or am I too much and I need to slow down and think a bit? Like, it's really that, like, being able to acknowledge like where you are in your in your training, in your competition.
I mean, so obviously this sport has been in a constant state of evolution, right? It's constantly changing, right? It's UFC debuts in '93, and if you watch the UFC from '93 to now, like, it's the same organization, but it's a completely different art. Like,
different
it's
machine,
changed so much. The rules, the fighters. I mean, everyone has their own ideas of how fighting should be, right? But if you can if you could change anything, I'm going to give you godlike powers, and you can change any. You're Dana White and the commission and everyone else who has any power in this sport, and you can make it any way you want. How would you recreate MMA? It's a lot of power I just gave you, man.
Wow.
Use it wisely.
That's a lot of power. That is a lot of power. So I think one of the things that I would like to see, or that I would like to see, is, remember back in the day when it was martial art versus martial art, like a jiu-jitsu versus boxing. I would love to see that more, because for personal reasons, I could do what I love to do against a guy, like, where it's like you. I think you get what I'm trying to say.
It was entertaining. It was
very entertaining. Very, very, very entertaining, and I'd love to see how different martial arts match up against each other, because now MMA has become like one.
It's one martial
one
art.
thing.
Yeah.
So I think there would definitely be more of that, and I think less reporters. Less MMA reporters. I would almost like take them out and do more like promoting. So if I were Dana White, I'd get rid of the promoter or the reporters and try to promote my fighters through like my own company. So like I would put more spotlight on my fighters with UFC cameras rather than like some Joe Schmo, reporter who's only been like writing or doing journalism for 2 years and giving them that responsibility. I would round up my fighters and put them in my cameras and everything like that and promote them and their special martial arts.
What about the rules? Would you change the rules in any way? If you can like eliminate this or add more of that, like what is it about? Even if the round, the time, like if you could shape the fight, the framework of the fight.
I think the timing, I would do 5 3-minute rounds.
5 3-minute rounds.
Yeah, instead of 3 5-minute rounds, I'd do 5 3-minute rounds. Just like a Muay Thai fight.
Yeah.
Just because just like 5 minutes straight, I don't know. I'd do 5
it's
3
a long
minute
round.
5 3-minute rounds. Yeah. I think if on the ground, so grappling, if it's a jiu-jitsu match, I think that they don't break up stalemates enough. Yeah. Like there's just a lot of just like holding. And I don't know how the judging works.
Yeah.
I really don't know what the judges are looking for. So I definitely have to find some way to make sure that the judging is on point.
That's a tough one with the judges because a lot of them don't have a lot of experience. So it's not always clear what the criteria is, right? Because you see some guys like I mean, clearly everyone who knows anything about fighting, they're looking at it like clearly that guy won the round, and the judges see something completely different. Right?
Yeah, so I actually thought about it while I was in my last fight. They always say they're judging on significant strikes,
Yeah.
cage control, and takedowns, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what they mean by cage control, because like
Yeah, that's true.
90% of the fans of my last fight think I got robbed. I know why, like I know what I did wrong and what I could have done to win, but there's a huge number that think I got robbed. For one, in my mind, I'm like, I'm controlling the cage, but the judges don't. I don't know what they're looking for. Like I don't know what that means to them specifically.
I don't know, but does it mean maybe that you are the one pressing your opponent against the cage?
Which, if that's the case, I did that all 3 rounds. Like I should have gotten like perfect score all 3 rounds. Significant strikes, I don't know what they mean in the eyes of the judges. I know what a significant strike is. Something that hurts, like a clean where you're off balance. But the judges don't seem to like know the difference between a normal strike or significant strike. So I'd definitely change the judging, man. Maybe get some ex-UFC fighters in to be judges, huh?
That's been a hotly debated topic because, if you get fighters, let's say you get a guy like Randy Couture in there, right? Like he knows fighting. It's always been doing this forever. You get a guy like Randy, you get like anyone who's retired, right? But then you have the opposite problem where there's so many alliances and ties in this sport where you're going to be judging a former training partner, might be a good friend of yours, and that's what they worry about. I would rather
or
that
cater towards your martial art, right? So if you got like,
a jiu-jitsu judge would vote pro jiu-jitsu because he's going to see that more. That's a good point too against it because if you're a striker, you're always going to value more that than whatever else is going on the ground and vice versa, right? You're going to have that bias. But there's a part of me that thinks that it's still better than having what we have now. Like we'd still be better off with that,
Yeah, and then I think the gloves. I know for me, the gloves and just seeing the eye pokes and stuff like that, it's getting really bad. And I think that there's so many different types of MMA gloves that can be used, which is I don't know why the UFC is still using the same ones.
Which ones would you like to use?
So in training, when I hit the bag, I use like a classic bag glove. So just like a piece of leather that goes over, very like I can grapple with them. It's got a pad like a covered thumb, but it looks like oven mitts almost.
Yeah.
But you can completely fold your hand, but it just keeps your knuckles from getting busted up and things like that. The exposed fingers. I mean, like you don't necessarily need all of your fingers exposed to grapple, as long as you can open and close like this.
Yes.
And I think that would avoid eye pokes because we've seen some really bad eye pokes over the past year.
What percentage of those eye pokes you think are intentional?
50.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah,
because I mean, I'm not gonna mention names here, but there's like, some of these guys got away with this right here for way too long, and it happened in so many fights.
And you got to think too, being a ref, if you're watching a fight, like you can warn a guy to keep the hands up, but there's so many other things going on that you're looking for, right? So you can't really stop it. If you tell me like, okay, put your hands up, and my hands are up like this, but then like the split second I go like, it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to watch for.
One thing I was always against is like you get a warning when you do something wrong. Let's say you're gonna get taken down, you hold on to the fence.
Yeah.
Oh, they get a warning. It's like he already knows that's illegal. Why are you warning him? Like he already knows you can't do that, right? Or like the eye poke. Like they get a warning. I'm like, why are you giving him a warning? Like he knows you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to do that. You're a professional. You're supposed to know the rules when you walk in there, right? But it's like everyone gets away with doing it at once, right?
Yeah.
Before they have a point taken away from them.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes, like, I mean, I've heard guys that just like kind of know that they're gonna just get a warning first, so they might do like something dirty, like groin shot or an eye poke or something because they know the first one's most likely gonna just be a warning. But another thing that I've heard and I agree with too is like MMA is in its leather helmet stage. Football back when they had the leather helmets, it was like kind of brand new. There was no bar on the on the front yet, and although MMA has been around for a while, um, it does seem to still be like pretty new, and they're still trying to figure everything out. So
Because the fighters are figuring out ways around the rules. Remember that was that thing going on where you touched the ground? The guy
yeah,
couldn't kick you? And
the
then
three finger rule.
you're finding these loopholes in the rule set. And what's going to happen is the rule set is just going to start going in bigger and bigger and bigger. So there are more things that they cover because the fighters are always going to try to exploit
Yeah.
these loopholes, which is understandable. You're trying to win, so they're going to do whatever they got to do. But these, but I think the tendency is for them to eventually start, closing it down.
Yeah.
And there's less room for that kind of stuff.
What do you think about soccer kicks?
I'm mixed feelings about that one.
Mixed,
man.
yeah.
Mixed feelings. I am in favor of this though. Like if you're bottom, let's say you're my guard, and I want to kick up with you on your knees, I don't see a reason why not, because you're on top of me.
Yeah.
I think that's a different standard, right? So if I'm bottom, I should be able to kick you in the head.
Yeah.
But a soccer kick, the thing is that there's the potential for so much power.
Damage too, right?
Yes,
Especially
like you
if
could
it's
actually,
to the head.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, a head kick, standing, brutal, right hand, all that. But there's something about a guy loading up a soccer kick and kicking you straight in the head, man. Like those Pride days were brutal, man. Like,
yeah, definitely. I think it's entertaining to watch, right? But it's definitely dangerous. Like I'm thankful now that, being a fighter, I'm like, okay, it's illegal. Like I don't want to get my head kicked like like that, I don't want that to happen. So yeah, entertaining to watch, but definitely like being the fighter.
You don't want to be on the receiving end.
You definitely don't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, I wonder if that. I mean, because we've had mortal accidents in MMA. It has happened. I suppose it has happened in every sport, really. But when you think about it, it's actually surprising that we have not had that many of them.
Yeah.
Right? When you think about the level of aggression in the sport. I mean, there's always risk, but I think soccer kick is probably the one that is, that, and there's a
Soccer
part of me
and
like,
spiking.
yeah, I was, the Fedor and Kevin Randleman fight. Mm-hmm. Every time I see that, I was like, man, should we ban that move? Because like that's pretty terrifying to be on the receiving end.
It gets to a point where like things can get really bad. And just to go back on your question about if I could change the rules, or if I can change anything about MMA, I'd find a way to change the minds of the fans. I feel like the fans make it what it's not.
Yes.
I feel like the fans make it what it's not. And one thing that stands out to me and why I say that is I was thinking about Jacare and how he got his arm broken the other day. And how much time and energy and effort and everything he put into his camp, like we all do, goes out there to do what he loves, put on a great show, and his arm gets broken. And now at his age, probably can never fight again. Yeah. And I just don't see enough respect and support from the fans.
Yeah.
And it's not just him, it's just like that's the latest example. Yeah. But like people in this game, Chris Weidman, like all these people, like things can happen to us, and like very bad life-changing things can happen to us from going in there and entertaining. So I think that fighters, we need more respect from the fans. I don't think that we get enough respect from the fans. I think it's too easy for them to go online, say what they want to say. Like we get thrown under the bus sometimes from a bad performance, or all these things.
It's awful. Yeah.
And I just think that there's not much respect, and I would do everything in my power to change that and get some more respect for the fighters.
I used to dream like a TV show where you would find the trolls like online, like keyboard warriors, and then you would show up at their house with the fighter they were talking shit about, and just show up at their front door like, "Hey man, what's up?" Just to see the look on their face, it'd be priceless. But no, you're right. I think fans need to be more educated, which is a hard thing to do because fighting is something you've never done understand. It's very complex, right? So it's not something you can learn, just watching UFC. You probably have to immerse yourself in that world. Not everyone wants to do that. But it kills me that the fans, they need the soap opera so much. Like when I watch fights, the trash talking to me, like I skip it. Like I'll fast forward. It's not important to me.
Yeah.
I'm watching the footwork.
I want to see the skill.
Yeah, I want to see your head movement. I want to see your takedown ability. That's what I'm interested in, right? I think that fans could cross that, like where they're no longer obsessed with the soap opera and who's talking smack about who and the trash talking, and you can get rid of it because it's a language everyone understands. Trash talking, everyone gets it. Like so, it's easy to relate to the fighter because of that. But if they could like bridge that and actually see what the skill set that are being displayed and appreciate just that, I think the sport would be better. Like I said, because they would stop shaping the sport. Because the uneducated crowd, because they're the ones that are financing the sport, to some degree they shape what the sport is.
Definitely.
Right, and that's such a good point you made, because if we could change how they saw fighting, I think the sport would evolve a lot.
I think the next step would be for the fighters to start to be a little bit more open and just like honest and vulnerable about like what we go through. You know, like if it's kind of up to us now to show how human we are. We're really good at showing how, you know, how tough, athletic and how tough and how like indestructible, whatever it is that we try to show through fight cameras and through, you know, through this world. But I think it's definitely time for us to show a little like a different side to the fans so that they can start to understand. Cerrone did a great job of it. A couple weeks ago during his fight, UFC did a segment on him, and he explained what it's like every time he's about to walk out to a fight. And he talks about the nerves and, you know, having to throw up and all of these things. And they got great responses. Like people were like, "Oh, this is what it's like." And even me, like watching it, I'm like, "Yeah, that's it. That's it." You know, it's not this like hype. I'm out to my song. Like, yeah, that's a part of it. But what about the back? Like, what about in the locker room where like you're in cold sweats and all? Yeah, it's crazy. So I'd love to see more of that for sure.
That's awesome. Well, Khalil, it was a pleasure, man. It was really nice chatting with you. I'm looking forward to be able to help you out with jiu-jitsu, you know?
Yeah.
Anytime you come over, we're always here. And, man, great to see you traveling the world, but still, you know, sticking to your dreams. And super happy to learn a little bit more about your journey. And, man, you've conquered a lot already. Keep it up, man, all the way to the belt.
To the top.
All the way to the top, bro.
Thanks, man.
Great to see you, man, truly.
You too.
You know, happy for you. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. It was a pleasure learning a little bit more about Khalil's journey. And yeah, guys, once again, if you enjoyed the content, spread the word. Let your friends know. Comment, like, subscribe. We'd love to give you more content that you guys would like to learn about. So if you got questions, suggestions, things that you love about the channel, things that you would like the channel to do a little bit differently, anything, guys, just let us know. This is your channel as well.